Lucy again, and from Art Shed Angel, and our page is dry. So we've done all our colour and our stenciling, and our page is dry. I have my tissue paper with my drawing of the girl's face on that I've traced. It's a little bit light because the background's so dark, so I'm just going to darken up those lines just a bit. So make sure that we're going to stick this on, so we need to make sure that the lines are dark enough. Don't go too crazy. Okay, so the nicest way we're going to apply this now to this picture, the best way to do it is we could cut neatly around her face, but I find if you just use a little bit of water on a brush and you run that around the tissue paper on the outside of her face. I'm going to go up to her forehead because that way we don't get a line across her forehead if the paint might leave. Okay, so we've done that with tissue paper and it magically then tears. Okay, so we've got her face. And this is a great part about doing it this way because we can really decide where we want her to be. I'm actually thinking I'm going to do some writing on this page. I really liked that card that I got earlier that said Golden Opportunity, and I'm just going to use that card and that thought. I might actually write the words Golden Opportunity. So I'm going to put her onto the right hand side here, and I'm going to stick her down over the top. Okay, so at the moment it's white and I can see I can't see through it. I use matte, what's called matte medium. My favorite is the Liquitex brand one, and I'm going to use the matte medium. And the first thing I'm going to do is spread some paint underneath her. You need to have quite a soft brush for this. I might need to change brushes. So I'm just making a spread underneath her, and then I'm going to just put her down on that and then really lightly brush over the top. So for those who say they can't draw or they are very carefully drawing around their images, this is a great way of putting your drawing onto the page. So again, very lightly. Now the reason we're not using a gloss medium, and one of the reasons I don't use Mod Podge in that, because I find that this particular medium ends up with a bit of tooth. Now it's a little bit hard to see her at the moment. I'll just try to hold the book up so you can see her face. But she's there and I can see her perfectly, so when I start to work, just make sure there's no air bubbles in her face. So that's pretty much gone completely clear, and we let that dry and then we can start to work on it. She needs to be quite dry before we can do any further bits to her, so you know, I'll use a heat gun or just put her out in the sun for a little while to dry, because I'm going to colour in with pencils over the top of her, over the top of this tissue paper, which is nice and matte. I really want to make sure she's dry so that I'm not ripping the tissue paper. But I can easily see her now. If I had have used a black pencil instead of a purple pencil, I'd even be able to see her better. So, you know, you could use a black pencil or a nice dark graphite pencil, or even a permanent pen. One of these sort of permanent pens works well as well. Okay, we leave that dry for a moment and we'll get on to the next step. I want to show you some of my daisies that I've created. On my website I have downloadable coloured daisies, and in this case I've printed them on some mulberry paper, which was a kind of a grey coloured mulberry paper. I'm ordering in some white paper, which I think will work a lot better. Again, just to tear it, wet the outside. Now these are going to be beautiful for your collage, okay? I have lots of different designs, and all the coloured ones are great for collage. See how now that tears a really soft tear, but we're left with the beautiful daisy. So I want to put daisies in her hair, and this was another design, but it's poppies, and I'm just going to use the poppies from this. and I'll show you how I do it. Again, a lot of people say I can't draw. This is a way for you to learn how to colour, and it's just about positioning. So I've also drawn her face in with a pen so you can see it. I possibly wouldn't have drawn it in myself, but just for the video's sake, it stands out a lot more. So I've got all these daisies now and a couple of poppies. So I'm going to place them, and again I'm going to use that matte medium, and I'm going to paint the matte medium and place the daisies where I think they should go. Now they'll go a little see-through, but I'm going to show you how to make them, to revive them. So I'm going to put this big one right here. I think she needs a bit of a statement piece. Like I said earlier, I wanted to do like a garland of flowers in her hair, and I might do a poppy popping up from behind one of the others. Just use more matte medium if you need to. You can overlap them. So in this case she's going to have another one, and because I've done the furry edges, when I overlap them they still look good. This is a great way. I hope you have a look on my website at the different designs I have, which are all downloadable, and just you can print them with your inkjet printer. So I've really wanted to help people with their creativity by creating pictures. A lot of people think that they can't create, or that they find it difficult to create, and I'm hoping that by you being able to download some of these designs that you can learn to create differently. And in looking at designs, I always believe that's where you learn to draw. So I've done this lovely garland of daisies. I might actually put a tiny one. So I've printed them, even though it was one design, I've just printed them on a page in all different sizes. So you download the one design, feel free to use it in many different ways. So we have the girl ready to start working with, and I am thinking that she might need to have some beautiful flowing hair now. I'm going to just give a little bit of hair at the top, and I'm going to draw a neck, and I'll just use it darker. I'll use the pen so that you can see. So I'm just going to put her neck in. It's going to be a little bit off center. Start with her shoulders. She's going to have a nice long neck, even though she's got kind of a short face. And I'm going to do, I think, beautiful reddy coloured hair coming out from there. Will be lovely. Okay. So now, once this is all dry, we'll get started working on how do we make this all really stand out. So I'm still really in love with those words, golden opportunity, so I'm going to write that across here, and then I'm going to maybe journal what that actually means to me. So when you think of a verse or wording, then start to think of what does it mean to me. So I'm going to just, in my own handwriting, write the words. Now just do it in your own handwriting, and then I'm just going to write. I'm going to show you a really easy technique of making your writing a little bit more exciting. So I've just done this in a grey pencil. Now you can see I was running out of space there, so I actually went up in a curve. It doesn't matter. Don't be so scared by what you're doing. So I'm now going to go to my writing that I've completed here, and I'm going to draw a line on either side of that writing. So basically I'm tracing it but leaving space between. Okay, It's good to do that with a graphite pencil even, so that you can rub it out afterwards. And because I'm going around, I'm also going to run into the next letter if I kept going. So make sure you leave space for the next letter. And so that's my own handwriting. You know, I really truly believe that in the future, people are going to be more interested in seeing people's handwriting than computer-generated images. So don't forget to use your own handwriting when you're doing your journaling. It's the whole point to it. It's all about you. So I've just traced the writing I did. Alright, we have our writing on this side, we have our girl on that side. I'm kind of liking the balance. I've even had to go the Y over the top. I'm now going to colour the background, and this is where I'm going to use these beautiful Derivan inks. These are a permanent acrylic ink, so you can't wet them back down again. You do need to make sure the other surfaces are quite dry, but I put the ink straight on, and I'm going to colour around all the images that I've already put in place. Now, you might need to change the size of your brush from time to time, but you're going to cover the page. Just got another brush, sorry. Okay, now this is translucent, so you can see when I'm painting that the colour of the ink is going over the top, and sometimes even with cases with the pink, because I'm using this beautiful violet colour, the violet colour is actually bringing the pink out. So I'm going around and I'm making the whole background darker. And the reason I'm working in this order is because I think it's really nice for something to seem like it's coming out of the page. So I'll just go over and paint. If you get any ink on the writing, just wipe it away straight away. But you can see I'm making the background darker. Okay, and I'll just keep going and I'll show you when I'm done. And now is I've darkened the background. I've just brushed that on. There's still more we're going to do to it, but you can see kind of how the beautiful colours from behind come out. Now it looks really rough at the moment, but this is where we're going to start to use our pencils. So I'm going to use a Prismacolor pencil and I'm going to go over the wording, and I still want to see the wording through the colours, so I'm just going to do like almost a highlight on the tops and to one side, and this is going to make these letters really pop. If I just made that, making sure your paper's dry. So I've just done some little highlights on that, and we're going to start to work on her face now. So with her face, I'm just using, to start off with, a cream Prismacolor pencil, and I'm just going to go over most of her face with that to start off with, not her eyes, and that's just to bring her face forward, because everything looks quite flat at the moment, so we need to bring her face out of the background, and this is where magic really starts to happen. Colour right up to the edges of those daisies. You can see because I've feathered the edges, it's really easy to colour over, and there's some nice texture there too. So her face is starting, and I'll put a bit on her neck, but I'll leave a space for a shadow. So her face is starting to pop from the page. Then I'm going to use like a peachy colour to give her a slight skin colour. So I've used the cream colour pencil first, and now I'm going over with the peachy coloured pencil. And this is really important that this is dry whilst you're doing this, because otherwise you will tear your paper. So she's really starting to pop out of the page. Okay, I'm going to give her slightly brown eyes, so I'm giving some colour there, again in the shadow areas. I'm going to use my pen to give her pupils. In this case I'm just going to do them all black because I'll add white paint for those highlights. And I'm going to give her a bit of eyeliner. And that little wise smile at the corner. A little bit more pencil. So I'm doing a little bit of a base colour for her eyes, and then I'll actually shade over the top. I'm using my darker grey to give her eye a bit of shape. Okay, but because her eye seems to be sinking backwards, this is when we'll use a little bit of white. So you can use your any white paint. To just give that whites in her eyes. I don't want them to be too white, so sometimes give it a little bit of a dab, and you get that natural shadow. And then I'm going to give her a nice big highlight in her eye. And I'm going to say that light is coming from a couple of places. And by doing the curve this way and that way, it's giving her eye a curved shape. So that's a little technique you can get to giving that. Make sure that that spot in the middle is nice and white. Sometimes you've got to give it a second. And I also try to make it equal in each one. I'm also going to add to her eyes a little yellow. She's got brown eyes. If you ever put too much paint down, you just use your finger to dab it slightly off. I want her to have nice bright eyes. She's looking very Polynesian, I think, really. So I'm also going to do her eyelids now. And a nice pinky sort of colour for the top lip. I'm doing the top lip darker. And then a softer colour pink for her bottom lip, which I'll then blend some of the top colour over the top, just so she's got the same colour. Okay, then you can also add that little bit of white onto her lip. Again, just touch it with your finger if there's too much. I'm going to put a little bit of that above her eyes, and just to make her eyes pop a little bit below. So she's really starting to get a personality now. I really like lovely rosy cheeks, so I'm going to give a bit of colour to her cheeks. Actually, before I do that, we'll do a bit of shading. So I use purple a lot for shading because it gives quite a natural look, I think, to shading. So remember the eye socket, so we want to see her nose, and of course there's the shadow there. Have a look at someone's eye. As you're doing this, we'll have a magazine picture. Again, a bit of shadow under her nose, under her lips because her lips are a little bit out, and under her chin. So because the light, we've got the light mainly come from that side, I'm going to put more shadow on this side of her face too. And this again gives her face a round look, so you don't want her to have a flat face. So and now you'll see little bits where you can add a bit more pink to her cheeks. I might even use a bit of a brush because I don't have the right colour pencil. So for her cheeks, I'm going to add a bit of colour with the brush. Oh, spilled. And put too much colour down. And this just shows you, if you put too much colour down, paper towel. Okay, there's never a disaster. And I'm just thinking I might just sponge a bit there with that colour that I've spilt. Okay, so I'm thinking that her eye just needs a little bit more white to pop it out. So I'm going to use a Posca marker. Okay, so this is a great white marker. It works really good over acrylic paints. And I'm just going to add some detail to her. Give her nose some shape. A little bit on her eyebrows. I'm going to put a little bit more white in those eyes and make those highlights brighter. Sometimes you need to do a little bit of a touch-up because the paint takes in the colour. And again, if it's too dark, touch it with your finger. Or too white, I'm going to give a bit of colour down the bridge of her nose. And because I know that that's going to stand out too much, I've given it a bit of a wipe. Eyes are really interesting images to colour, and sometimes you need to play around a little bit. I'm going to use some of my black Derivan ink to give just a bit more shape. Now, what I like about the black Derivan ink is it's quite transparent, so if I colour, it'll still show the other colours through. So okay, so we've got a little bit of a better idea of what she should look like. Now my white has bled there, so I'll have to fix that up in a moment. You can, with your Posca markers, then start to colour your daisies in. So I want them to really pop, these daisies. So I also have a larger one that's easier to colour with. Now this won't bring it completely as white as I want. I'm going to add paint to it because it will sink in a little bit. But you can see you can just colour your daisies.